Carl, I want to move to another issue also that seems to be bubbling up. And I saw this, I think this was maybe 2 or 3 days ago where this kind of broke, where Europe passed another sanction package against Russia. And weirdly enough, in the sanction package against Russia, they named China. It's like Europe is trying to commit suicide. Reuters and many other articles reported on this also. But basically, what it boiled down to, I think it was the 27th package of sanctions against Russia. And they were going for, I think it was 11 Chinese companies that they outlined that supposedly was somehow in cahoots, quote unquote, with Russia in this case. And so their thought is we're going to now go after China also. China's response to this was to effectively re-sanction, retaliate against Europe for doing this. Break this down for us. I think there were, let me see, according to Reuters, I think there were like 11 different companies. I don't have my glass, 14 right here. So it says banning the export of dual-use items to 14 additional European Union entities with immediate effect. So basically, China retaliated by going after the European Union, putting 14 European companies on their sanction list. And the first thing I thought about this was, what does this mean for the war in Ukraine? I mean, much of the drone parts that Ukraine is using are basically secondhand items from China that it's using. Okay, well, if dual-use items are being stopped for various entities, what does this mean for the war? Or does this even affect the war?
Well, yeah, I mean, like if China just stops selling the drone parts to Europe, guess what? Where is Ukraine gonna get their components to make their drones? This is European elites' policy has been self-defeating for a long time. I mean, they are doubling down on being the puppy dog of Washington, despite Trump publicly humiliate them again and again. Because that's the only thing they know how to do is to suck up to Washington and hope that they get better treatment from their daddy. Their hope that Daddy Trump will finally come around and treat them nice. But the problem is that's not what Trump intended to do. And again, China has poured a lot of investment into Europe, but Europe is right now. UK just recently essentially seized a Chinese steel plant from in UK. Like China has poured billions of dollars to revive this old UK steel plant. They brought new equipment, a lot of capital injection, and keep people on the payroll so they didn't get layoffs. So now the UK is like, oh, thank you for turning our company around. Now, for national security reasons, we must have our own control, our own steel plant. I mean, why did you say that when your steel plant was facing bankruptcy? Like essentially China can, and now they want to buy the plant at evaluated asset price. But the problem is China actually pouring a lot of money to upgrade the plant, to upgrade the equipment, and trying to pour way more money than what UK wants to pay for it, which is so this is a plain robbery. And the same thing happened in Netherlands when the Dutch government seized Nesperia, a Chinese chip manufacturer. Again, it was a former Dutch chip semiconductor company under the Philips, and it was going under bankruptcy. So Chinese came in, they bought it, they injected in capital, they put in, they build research and development centers that hire more people. And now the Dutch government's, well, it was mostly pressure from the United States in the Dutch government case. And they say, sorry, national security reasons, because, we just have to, we cannot have these Chinese making chips. So they took away Nesperia, and that case is still ongoing. So at one hand, it's complaining China's on trade practices. On the other hand, it says, F you Chinese investment, because any of these Chinese investors potentially thinking about investing in Europe, well, F you, don't even think about it, because we're going to take it away from you once you made a formerly bankrupt company profitable again. And then they continually blame their problems on China. they need a big scapegoat because the whole Ukraine war is hurting European economy. They have that cut off from cheap source of energy, and then Daddy Trump went ahead and did this whole Iran war operation and cut them further off from the Gulf gas and oil. So Europe is really getting screwed right now. They need a scapegoat, and they traditionally use China as scapegoat because what they feel like, oh, China is far away. They can't. What are they gonna do? What the Chinese gonna do, right? Well, we're gonna take their plans. We're gonna take over their company. What's Chinese gonna do? Well, China today can actually do quite a few things. For one thing, China can cut off your rare earth supply. China still has that control over the rare earth supply chain. And also China can restrict their own market to European luxury goods. All these European luxury good maker, whether it's cars or Chanel bags or whatever, they derive huge portion of their revenue from China. And Chinese government say, you know what? Now we're gonna reserve the Chinese market for Chinese product. Now they can easily do that, and then what? I mean, like the European leadership, they have no backbone and they have no vision, and this is why Europe is in the kind of mess it is in right now.
No, I I agree with you. I mean, it's very strange. I mean, it seems like I said, Europe seems to be committing suicide. You pointed it out perfectly. They cut themselves off from Russian energy. Russian energy was the thing that allowed Europe to be Europe. Now there's the war in the Middle East that Europe can't bring itself to say anything in condemnation of, despite the fact that it's obviously a war of aggression by the US. And to make it even worse, when Rutte came to the States, he was trying to mend fences between Trump and Meloni, saying, hey, Italy, help with the war. Italy, help with the war. Don't hit Meloni. Please don't hit her. Like, it was very strange with Europe basically trying to show their bona fides for, hey, Trump, don't be mad at us. We're actually helping with the war because Italy did something about using its bases for the war. I guess my thing is, they are taking a hit across the board. And now the idea that they're going to say, okay, we're also now going to antagonize China. This seems to be, as I've used the term again, suicide. What do you make of this? I mean, how could China ever really invest in Europe if indeed at any random moment Europe would turn around at the behest of the US and attack the company that China invested in?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of willingness for China to invest in Europe, as have seen by its record over the past.
Right.
China has invested in Greece port after Greece went basically declare bankruptcy, and they have turned it around. They actually turned around that operation, and so I think going forward, China will probably redirect their investment into more friendly countries. So far China is pouring investment into Serbia and also Hungary because these countries are more welcoming and conducive for the Chinese investment. And they will probably have to hold off on investment in Western Europe until the political climate improves, until they can guarantee their investment will be protected. It won't be seized arbitrarily on some bogus national security reasons. But right now, European elite strategy is, no, we got to stick together with Daddy America. We're gonna go down together. They're going to go down with the ship, and I think that's going to happen because they try to build a wall around United States and Europe, and they're gonna try to piggyback on American AI. I mean, because they don't have the Europe, they don't have their own AI product at this point. Right now, the world only have two choices: American AI or Chinese AI. Chinese AI much cheaper, but if you want to support Sam Altman and Dario, you can always buy the more expensive American AI product to support those Silicon Valley bros. That's a path that the European leadership is choosing. So, yeah, I don't hold much hope for Europe. The European leadership is hopelessly corrupt, spineless, and short-sighted.
Speculate as to why for me. I mean, because it is very strange if you think about what is in your best interest. And Europe seems to have prioritized America as you pointed out, they're going down with the boat.
Jamar, you're making a big assumption. You're making a big assumption that the interest of the European elite is the same as the interest of common European citizens. See, this is the you can't apply the same analogy to the United States. Do the Epstein class represent the interest of average American? Hell no, they don't. Neither do the EU bureaucrats. They don't really care about what's in the best interest of Europe, of the average European citizens. All they care about is maintaining their own privilege, and a lot of their own privilege is hitched upon being America's puppy dog. All these top European bureaucrats, they got to their position where they are because they were being groomed from a very young age through all these Atlanticist institutions, that's backed by Washington. People like Ursula von der Leyen, well, what is her qualification, right? And her qualification is just be a spokesperson of Washington in Europe. A lot of them owe their position ultimately to United States, and they recognize that. So this is why they're going down with the ship. Their fortune, their social standing, their careers is tied with the ship, which is American empire. So they're sticking with it. They don't care what happened to the masses. After après-midi, the deluge. After me, the flood. They don't care what happened afterwards.
Yeah. What's her name? What is her name? She used to be the foreign minister for Germany, Annalena Baerbock, where she says, "I don't care what the Germans think. We're going to continue to give money to Ukraine." No,
she was at least honest. She was at least honest
with it. Same thing with Merz, right? It's like, we can't keep putting money into social services. We have to fight a war. It's like, okay, fair enough. I mean, mind you, they are as popular as pond scum, but they do tell you outright. I guess what I'm getting at is, do you look at this as a wall is being put up between spheres of influence? Like in the sense where, okay, this is the American sphere or the Western sphere. So in which case Europe and America have effectively became this thing into themselves, in which case they erect a wall. And now you have China, Russia, India splits.
Jamarl, what you're describing is what they call the international community in the mainstream media. When they call it international community, they're always talking about North America, not Mexico, just United States and Canada and Europe, Western Europe, and maybe Japan, South Korea, Australia, right? Like all these countries. It's now the international community versus the rest, which is a global majority.
15%, right? 50% of the globe is the global majority. No, that is the way they talk about it, but it is pretty wild that this idea of globalism, the moment that it wasn't necessarily to their benefit, it immediately became, okay, we need to partition the world. We have our sphere and you guys have your sphere. As you point out, 15% of the globe is the international community. No, it's very weird. I mean, but do you think that's where they're effectively going? This is delinking from China.
I mean, yeah. This is the plan. I mean, they've been. This is why they keep on talking about de-risk. First, they go like decoupling from China, and then they're like, okay, maybe that's too strong. We call it de-risking from China. We're gonna do China plus one. Move our supply chains elsewhere. Well, it hasn't really worked. So far, they have managed to move a lot of labor-intensive stuff out of China. For example, 25% of the Apple phone production, but to India, for example, and they moved some of the production to Vietnam. But what really has happened is they moved the final assembly to those countries, and these countries still depend on imports of all the components, all the machine tools from China. So their imports from China actually risen because they have to import a lot of components and machine tools. And they're adding in like their value add in the coal supply chain is actually the only final labor-intensive piece. Whereas in China's case, the China's export, their own margins keep on rising because China now they control their own supply chain. They make everything else. So they haven't really been successfully pivoting away from the Chinese supply chain. They just help to push out the Chinese supply chain even further into the world, like make these other countries now also depending on the Chinese supply chain. And this is even the U.S. military industrial complex cannot decouple from China. Like the Raytheon CEO said, yeah, I can't do it. We need our components from China. Anyways, I don't think the European elite worry about this, so I'm not going to worry about it either. I mean, Europe is screwed. Europe is screwed because the elite don't really care about what happened to Europe. They only care about how to keep their own current position, which again is tied to United States. And also, I think, Jamar, there's a sense that we white countries got to stick together no matter what.
I think it's that. Anything else? No bullshit. I think it's that. I think it's that. When what's his name comes out and says Europe is a garden and all this other stuff, and Rutte is trying to do everything in his power. I mean, calling a grown man daddy. They stick together even when it's not necessarily in their best interest. And you have to wonder why. What is the motivating factor for these guys to stick together like this? Aside from Japan, I think it boils down to Canada, the U.S.
Yeah, Japan can get the honorary white man status.
That's right. Right. It's like, for the sake of the military involvement, here's your white card. You can use it at your local retailer. Yeah, I think that's what it is. I really do. And I hate to say that, but I think that's true.
It's true. I mean, you can't. It's staring you in the face. They don't want to say it. With a lot of time where I'm trying to be polite about it, but there's no beating around the bush. Come on, it is what it is.
I think that's what it is. I really do.
Yeah.
I think it's like the white world has to stick together against the hordes. The 14% of us. It's only 14% of us. We're fighting a war.